Well, hey everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Well, today we're talking about episode 3 of Star Wars Ahsoka, which is entitled Time to Fly. We're starting to get into this show now. The first 2 episodes were sort of kind of getting us into what this whole series is about, and I feel like episode 3 is getting us into that journey just a little bit more. I can definitely see the sensibilities in storytelling that are kind of playing out in Star Wars Ahsoka that kind of seem to me really similar to the way that Dave Filoni executed the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. The storytelling style is kind of very similar, which makes sense considering Dave Filoni wrote this show. But today I'm going to go through episode 3 and have a chat about all of the bits and pieces that we saw in that, break it down and give you my review on episode 3, Time to Fly. So the episode starts off with Sabine having a lightsaber training session with Hu Yang. Now, I liked this scene quite a lot for a couple of reasons. The whole thing played out very similarly and in kind of parallel almost to Obi-Wan's training scene with Luke back in A New Hope on board the Millennium Falcon, where he's got the lightsaber out and he's got the training remote and everything. And I like that it's a different perspective that we haven't sort of seen before in Jedi training. I think if Sabine just had done the whole remote thing, the same that Luke did, that it would sort of be, oh yeah, okay, been there, done that, let's move on and show a different aspect. So I love the fact that Hu Yang, being a Jedi training droid, had these kind of holographic lightsabers and was going through different moves with Sabine. I love the fact that in the background on the wall with the cupboards, with all the different training kit inside the cupboards, we actually saw a couple of the training remotes in there. So even though we didn't see Sabine using a training remote, at least they were referenced in the background of the shot. So I really love that little attention to detail in terms of art direction and props there in the background of that scene. I also love how absolutely brutally honest Hu Yang is. He doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. He just says it pretty much bluntly. Sabine, you're the worst candidate for a Jedi I've ever seen. It's like, okay, thanks a lot for that, buddy. Talk about, trying to build your confidence a little bit, but he's not impressed at all. Obviously, Sabine's training with a sword has kind of come from her Mandalorian background. Being a Mandalorian, has had weapons training in the past, but she doesn't seem to have any force ability whatsoever, can't use the force, and is basically just using a lightsaber like she would use a sword without any connection to the force or anything like that at all. I think even in this scene when Ahsoka put Sabine's helmet on with the shield on the front, I think her line of dialogue where she says, I can't see how am I supposed to fight, was almost word for word kind of what Luke said to Obi-Wan in A New Hope when they're on the Millennium Falcon doing the same kind of training session. And it seems like that this training session isn't maybe going as well as, Sabine would have hoped. She's very impatient. She wants to kind of get there very quickly, and Ahsoka keeps kind of, reiterating to her that it takes time. You can't just do this sort of thing overnight. It takes, Padawans from the very, very, very young age of being younglings to doing the whole Padawan thing. It takes years of training to learn all these techniques, and Sabine really is sort of expecting that she kind of, just gets it instantly, and then sort of doesn't have to put a huge amount of effort in to actually, to get anywhere remotely where Ahsoka has got to in her training and her, career as a Jedi. Next, we get a scene back at the New Republic fleet there. We get some A-Wings coming in. We've got all the ships there in formation. It's a pretty cool scene. It reminds me a lot of some of those, Rebellion fleet scenes in Return of the Jedi. So I think that's really well done. And we see Mon Mothma as the Chancellor of the New Republic. Obviously, she was the leader of the Rebel Alliance or whatever in Return of the Jedi, and it will seem now she's now the Grand Chancellor of the New Republic. And we've got a bit of a scene here with a Senate committee. Hera's trying to kind of plead the case to send some ships and everything for backup and tell them that there's, a threat there and we need to sort out what Thrawn's potentially doing in terms of these dark Jedi trying to kind of bring him back from whatever part of some distant galaxy he's been stranded in, with potentially Ezra as well. Mon Mothma seems a little bit open to Hera's requests, but this other Senate committee official is a bit of a jerk. He kind of doesn't want a bar of it. He's not willing to be swayed in any way. And it almost seems like, whether this guy is going to turn out to have some sort of Imperial connection or some sort of Imperial sympathizer kind of character could well be the case, because he just seemed pretty adamant he didn't want to help at all. So maybe he's got some inside intel about what's going on over with Morgan Elspeth and the massive hyperspace ring that's being built over there. I like that we got a little glimpse of Hera's son, Jason. Obviously, we saw Jason right at the very end of the Star Wars Rebels series as the son of Kanan and Hera. He obviously looks more human than Twi'lek. His hair colour matches Hera's skin colour, so nice mix there. We see a scene between Ahsoka and Sabine on the ship there, just talking about using the Force and everything, and demonstrating that by using Force pull on the cups on the table. And it appears like Sabine has absolutely no Force ability whatsoever. Whether that still is the case by the time we get to the end of the series, I would maybe think not. I think maybe as we go progressively into the show, I would be surprised if that remained the case. I think it's far more likely that as we progress into the show, we'll start to see a little bit more Force stuff coming into things from Sabine's perspective. And she might kind of end up probably a sort of a similar level to, say, you know, Luke in Empire Strikes Back by the time we get to the end of the show. So it seems like our jerk, the Senate committee, has got his way, and Hera reports in to say basically there's no fleet support whatsoever for these guys. So yeah, I'm a bit suspicious of this guy. I reckon he knows what's going on and he doesn't want it all found out. He's trying to cover their tracks by not allowing any Republic ships to investigate what's going on in that area. Ahsoka's ship, the sensors and communications get jammed, and we get a whole bunch of fighters coming in that are part of Morgan Elspeth's forces. Obviously, we've got Shin, the Dark Jedi apprentice there, as well as Marrok, who's the Inquisitor we saw from last week's episode. There's a bit of chatter going on YouTube and everything, and a bit of a speculation about Marrok. Obviously, he's got the helmet on, and some Inquisitors we've seen with helmets on, some without helmets on. Everyone's kind of basically saying, who is this Marrok character, and is he going to turn out to be somebody that we know from a previous Star Wars story? And the general consensus seems to be that, and I wouldn't put this past Dave Filoni, because I love the way that Dave Filoni does like to bring in characters from outside of regular canon storytelling and so forth, such as Thrawn, for example, into his Star Wars stories. The rumours would seem to be bubbling in the direction of this character potentially being the character that Sam Witwer played in the Star Wars Force Unleashed video games by the name of Galen Marek. Marek and Marrok, pretty similar names. Where are these Inquisitors coming from? Obviously, the Inquisitors have got to come from past Jedi, past Padawans that have gone to the dark side, Force-sensitive and lightsaber-trained individuals. So it would make sense that one of the characters that we saw in those video games, the Star Wars Force Unleashed video games, Sam Witwer playing Galen Marek, is now Marrok, the Inquisitor. So it seems quite possible that we might be getting a reveal this season, and it could potentially turn out to be this same character. Even though Paul Darnell is credited as the person who wears the costume for Marrok, who is a stunt performer, Sam Witwer is credited in the end credits under additional voices, so this could be a potential hint. And when you consider that Vader trained Marrok in the ways of the Force to become a Sith, and that Anakin also trained Ahsoka, the fact that these two apprentices of Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader go up against each other would be a very nice connection to see. We get a cool scene here which is kind of very reminiscent of the dogfight scene in the Millennium Falcon versus the TIE Fighters back from A New Hope, where we've got, Ahsoka in the cockpit doing the piloting. We've got Sabine on the tail gun, taking out all the fighters and everything. At the start, it's like, oh yeah, okay, like how many times have we kind of seen this routine before? It wasn't sort of doing anything huge for me beyond what we've seen before. I mean, yeah, music was great. Kevin Kiner's score, obviously really, really Star Wars. Kevin Kiner having scored the Clone Wars and the Rebels series, so that was kind of cool. So it's okay. But it wasn't until the bit where Ahsoka gets in an EV suit out on the hull of the ship while they were critically damaged and starts bloody deflecting blaster bolts from the incoming ships with her lightsaber and doing these big flips and everything and taking out the ship's wings with her lightsaber and everything, that it's like, okay, this is cool now. This is something a little bit different. Some of the moves that Ahsoka pulled reminded me there was a move, I think it was in the Rise of Skywalker, that Rey did, where she does this big flip with her lightsaber in that movie. So one of the moves that Ahsoka pulls off in this scene isn't that different from that move, but I thought it was a really cool sequence. Good to see a bit of dogfight action. I did think maybe the dogfight went on a little bit too long, because we had them dogfighting in space, then we had them dogfighting around the hyperspace ring. Then we had them dogfighting in the atmosphere of the planet. I'm glad we had the little change of pace in the middle when the ship was damaged and Ahsoka had to go in the EV suit out on the hull to fend off, you know, blaster bolts and everything. That was really cool. But I think because we had a big dogfight before and also a big dogfight in the atmosphere of the planet, through the clouds, around through the Purgles, the big space whales and everything. By the time we got to the end of that dogfight, it's sort of like, okay, kind of had enough dogfighting for now. We've been dogfighting for a while. Yeah, let's move on to some other storytelling by now. I thought that maybe went on possibly a little bit longer than it should have, but still an exciting sequence. I think seeing the giant space whales, the Purgles, that references back to their appearance towards the end of Star Wars Rebels and everything, and how that potentially connects to how Thrawn and Ezra have been sent to the other side of a different galaxy in the hyperspace lanes of how these sort of migratory patterns of these Purgles or whatever. So that, I think, was kind of cool, and obviously connects back to that in terms of their appearance. At the end there, we get obviously Ahsoka and Sabine hiding out in that red forest on the planet's surface, shutting down all power, and the last little bit of the episode being Baylan sending his forces or troops out to sort of scour the forest for Sabine and Ahsoka. Overall, I thought this was a pretty interesting episode. I think it had a bit of cool action, and I could definitely see the sort of sensibilities in storytelling from Clone Wars and Rebels being heavily reflected in the style of these live action episodes. It'll be interesting to see whether we get any appearances by Thrawn or Ezra. I kind of feel like that's coming pretty soon. But guys, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, episode 3, Time to Fly of Star Wars Ahsoka. Leave your thoughts in the comment section and let me know what you thought of it. We'll get chatting about that. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to click on that big subscribe button to stay current and up to date with all the latest sci-fi TV news on YouTube. And also check out my merch store, plenty of sci-fi themed t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, caps, stickers, you name it. It's all there. Plenty of content to choose from and help support the channel at the same time. So much appreciated. I'll be back really soon with the next video. I'll catch you guys soon.